Hello, I'm Karl Stabe, and today I have Jessica Lackey with me. She's the author of Leaving the Casino, and I'm so excited to have you here because we've met in person, and I love having people that I've met in person on the show. But I love what you do, and I want you to share your wisdom with my audience. Well, first, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Sure, sure. I find it fascinating, with people of all different backgrounds. I'm curious. Yeah, I'm a big patterns guy, and this is why I think systems are so important. It helps you find these patterns. Is there a common pattern or failure that a lot of business owners make when they are building their business?
The biggest pattern is that they don't know what business they're building, and therefore they take strategies and tactics and ideas from the wrong business examples.
Okay, so then they read someplace else or they watch a podcast and then they're like, "Oh, I need to do that," and it doesn't fit with what they're trying to do.
Yeah, the biggest thing is like, okay, well, let me be on social media. But that's actually not how they gotten clients. That's not how they build relationships. They don't need that many clients. But yet everyone's talking about, I need a newsletter. I need to be on social media. I need X. I need to be on YouTube. I need to have podcasts. I need to do all these things. But the biggest pattern is they don't actually know how their business works because they don't know what type of business they are building. And therefore they choose the wrong strategies that are not built for them. And so they end up wasting a ton of time because it's like thinking about Southwest Airlines versus United Airlines. They have two different business models, although that's a bad example now because Southwest keeps like changing their business model. But one is about serving low cost. It's about, using secondary hubs and things like that. And the other is about the business traveler. Those are two different businesses with two different operating principles that govern what their investments and strategies should be. And so what you tend to find is people like cherry pick tactics and build a Frankenstein business, and then it doesn't actually work.
Yeah, because then and nothing really fits together. And it comes back to our discussion of systems. So what should people do instead?
The biggest thing is really this is the entire premise of the book, which is the what business am I building? What's important to me? What are my values? What level of what am I building? And only then can we know what decisions to take. Of course, that's not sexy, right? The entrepreneurial casino is like I call the entrepreneurial casino. My book is called Leaving the Casino. But the entrepreneurial casino is a multi-billion-dollar industry selling you cheap and easy solutions to fill your fame and fortune or to grow your business. And all they are doing is selling you tactics. In order to know what to assemble, you have to know how your business works, how it operates, how it runs, and what you want from it and what you want it to do for you. Those are all the questions that rarely we stop to ask because that's not sexy. It's foundational, but it's not something that I can like whip up into a 30-day challenge and start making progress on immediately. It requires thinking, it requires discernment, it requires maybe detaching from some of the inputs that were being marketed and really slowing down and like mapping how the business operates. And that's not fun for anybody but you and me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I love that stuff. I'm like, oh man, like if people, to your point, did that, slow down, really looked at that stuff, they would be able to eliminate so much waste that they're doing. Back to your point, you don't need a social media strategy if you get 90% of your business from referrals.
Right. One of the common refrains is oh, I've done a bunch of speaking engagements and I've never booked a call from that. I'm like, okay, well, let's, think about like the fire brigade, as it were, like the whole, like, let me like take water and like pour it from hand to hand from the fire, the hydrant to the fire. Well, assuming someone hears you once and is ready to put down their credit card and like buy from you, because that's what's going to happen on a sales call. I'm like, that's like trying to, cover 50 feet in one handoff versus saying, okay, well, the next step is I must bring them into my ecosystem. I must follow up with them. I must illustrate more about how I work in a slow way. And then maybe they'll want to book a call, right? But you have to know how your, like the business operates the system and saying like, have I built up enough trust yet? Is there a easy path from step A to step B to step C? Again, it's systems thinking. It's like mapping, like marketing isn't just as simple as do a speaking conversation and someone's going to book a call. Like that's the assessment part. If you're like, well, I'm booking all these engagements, there's no one booking a call. I'm like, okay, great. We have a problem in the system. We must fix and address the system and look at it with eyes and say, what's broken here? Do I not have enough volume? Do I not have enough? Is there a gap in the system? Those are some of again, the first principles to say, instead of just being busy, how do I focus on what actually drives the needle in my business? Again, not sexy, requires the root cause analysis of a systems thinker. Um, that's the biggest mistake I see is not slowing down and not asking the tougher questions.
Mm. So how do you build that in? Okay, so let's say, for example, people are listening, whether it's they have their own business or even if you work in a Fortune 500 company and you have a team of 8 people, you often are pulled in many different directions. So what do you suggest? So how do we hit that pause button and then what are those first couple steps that we take?
Well, I think we always have to say, when we're hitting the pause button, it's something, there's ways to step back, add reflection, maybe prune some stuff, maybe just put some stuff on pause. I think the most important thing we can do in some cases is to add friction and say, instead of taking on more things, let's actually put a little roadblock up and say like, no new things for a hot minute, which I know is not always, something that we can say in corporate, but I think we should. And then again, stepping back and thinking about the goal. What is the goal of our business? What is the near term goal? What is the long term goal? What are the strategic decisions we made about how our business works? And then what are the things that are not working and why aren't they working? So I'm assuming you've covered The Goal by Elihu Goldratt in your
On the podcast, I've
yeah.
never interviewed. Is
But
that what
you
you're
you
asking?
but you've referenced the concept of the goal, right?
I don't know if I ever have. I've read it, but I don't know if I've ever referenced it on the podcast.
In the goal, it's always like, let's pick the bottleneck. Let's pick the thing that's in the way. Let's say this is the thing that's the rate limiter of our improvements. But we must know one, what we're trying to achieve. Two, how this is limiting our growth. And then three, let's put a plan in place to fix it. Um, Instead of saying, like in a small business, it's like, oh, I need more leads. Well, we say, okay, well, do you need more leads? Top of funnel? Do you need more people to close, which is more bottom of funnel? Do you actually need more recurring clients? Do you need to restructure your offer? And do you need more leads by getting more exposure to more people or by doing more with the people you already have in your orbit? Right? Those are all very different action steps because we have to slow down to say, let's go, under the surface of what's really going on here. Let's not solve the wrong problem. And I think in the online world of entrepreneurship, there's a lot of focus on being busy versus very little focus on what's the actual root cause of my problem.
The Pareto principle,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
How do you put your focus on that 20% that's driving 80% of your results? Well, that takes a moment to slow down, pause, and look at what's working and what's not.
Yeah.
But it's hard, right? Because one, for me, I'm a solo entrepreneur. I do have a couple contractors working for me, and I've noticed that AI has played a bigger role in my work, and I'm trying to do a better job of leading AI because I've noticed AI just wants to tell you what you want to hear versus actually getting good feedback from it. And I'm curious if you notice that same thing.
Yeah. AI gives you answers quickly, but doesn't always ask the right questions. AI helps to make things sometimes go faster without saying, should we be doing this task in the first place? Right. For example, let's say you're trying to grow your business through podcasting and social media, right? And so AI can take a podcast that you do like this and clip it with AI clips, and you can shove them on LinkedIn and YouTube and things like that. But if no one listens to your podcast and no one he knows about you and your social media, you don't have a very big following, like the algorithm isn't actually going to serve up your podcast to new people, right? So like doing more, like making having AI generate clips for you that you can put on social media that no one sees because they're not following you, that no one finds out about your podcast because they don't know about you. Like that's using AI to solve the wrong problem. Would be like, okay, well, instead of like spending any time or money having AI make clips for me, how about I go guest on some other shows so that other people hear about my podcast? How about I do a newsletter swap with a collaborator where I talk about the podcast? Maybe I need to like change the caliber of guests and have them promote it to their audience, right? So AI helps us sometimes solve the right problems more quickly, but sometimes it's helping us solve the wrong problems more quickly and do things that, I talk about this with hiring a lot too. I'm like, do you need to hire for this thing or do you need to just stop doing the thing altogether? Like, is this a
Mm.
task you really need to be doing? Does this task, people are like, oh, I need to like hire a VA to do cold outreach on my behalf on LinkedIn. I'm like, do you ever get clients from cold outreach? No. Then why would you hire a VA and spend money on an activity that hasn't been shown to work? Or just not do the activity and not
Yeah.
hire the person?
Yes. Yeah, but it's hard. We want to try new things and see if they work, right? But back to your point is, okay, you can try new things, but don't keep doing them for years and years and not see the results that you need. Put a limit to it. Okay. The system is, I'm going to try this new thing for 3 months and see what happens and see if I can gain a little traction.
Yeah. And we have to actually go back and say, okay, I had this plan, which meant I had this hypothesis of what I was going to do. I had a hypothesis of my outcomes. A lot of times people don't execute the plan or the plan was flawed, right? Like, okay, well, I'm going to grow my business by, sending out one newsletter a month. That's not enough volume to change the system. Like that's like the system doesn't actually work. It's like below the minimum threshold for like what's required to actually make that be an effective marketing channel if you're trying to, grow through newsletters, right? So it's like, okay, well, one, did I have a good solid plan? Two, did I actually execute the plan? Right? Like that's kind of the thing is like, well, yeah, the system didn't work. And I'm like, well, did you run the system? Or did you just not run the system? Look at and that's where like it's like that's I didn't do the thing and therefore I didn't get the results. And I'm like, oh man, I didn't get the results. I'm like, you didn't do it enough. You didn't actually get past the initial hard parts. You didn't have a whole system, again, like this very similar, oh, people heard about me, yet they didn't book a call. I'm like, is it easy to book a call on your site? Can they follow you from where you're posting or where you're trying to be to your site? Does it work? I don't know. Like a lot of times people are like, oh, they didn't book it. I'm like, all right, like did the system work as intended or did it, did we actually learn something through our hypothesis?
And so I think what I'm hearing is the system is how do your review processes of what's working and what's not. It could be quarterly, it could be monthly, it could be yearly, just depending on the volume and pace of the business. But the idea is to have a system in place to review what's working, what's not, and then you're able to make adjustments based off of that.
Exactly. I always like to track, I like to set intentions and goals like out, I like to set my hypothesis and my next area of focus once a quarter. And then as a small soloist team, and then measure like how I'm doing on my plan every month, right? Because a lot of times it's like, oh, well, I want to increase my customer volume or I want to increase my revenue. It usually takes 2 to 3 months for things that we put in place to actually have an impact. So we have to measure, did we put the things in place? Did we run the play? And how are we measuring not just the ultimate fruits, but are we seeing any signs of positive change?
Yeah.
I think we have to say it's kind of like bookkeeping. It's like, well, if you only update your books once a year, you're not going to have those positive signals. But trying to like look at your cash every day, um, it's that interim is too small to make any meaningful difference.
Mm. So a lot of the leading indicators, the stuff that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, will determine your lagging indicators because then they will show you, okay, I'm putting these inputs in, but it's not getting the results on the back end. Okay, it's what I'm putting in that's really determining my outputs.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that's where like the casino is like, selling you the dream of the output. but not selling you the requirements of the inputs.
Mm,
And how any business operates is again like, I have a membership, I have a cohort, I have a one-on-one consultancy. I know after doing this for a few years how many new email subscribers I need to sell 10 seats in my cohort. I know how many referral partners I generally need and how many guest exposures I need to have in order to keep my one-on-one roster full. I know a sense of like how long do my clients stay with me. So now I know that if I need to, I can look at my indicators and say, am I doing the things likely to lead to this result? Most entrepreneurs don't track enough of their business to know how their business operates. They don't know where their clients come from. They don't know where they make their money. They don't they don't have a map of a guidebook to how their business runs. And so it's just throwing spaghetti at the wall. And when you don't know how your business runs, you're more likely to be taken advantage of by the idea of tactics and these strategies and these like shiny objects because again, like system thinkers like us are like, what do I need to do to make the business operations run more smoothly versus like, this sounds like a fun idea. Let's just try it.
hmm Yeah. And it's hard, where a lot of entrepreneurs, have ADHD or some form of it, and we like to try new things and we like to solve different puzzles, but it doesn't lead to a sustainable business that will grow over time.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so, like having accountability partners, having a place to put things down. I have a running list. It's called my Sparkles database. I have a running list of like all the things that I'm like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And this sounds like the most neurotypical thing ever, but I have like kind of like Google had 80% time or 10% time was like the time where you spoke on Sparkles. I'm like, I dedicate time on a regular basis to like indulging my wild fantasies. I don't let it screw up my business. I'm like, I can't take my eye off the ball of the stuff that makes me money to do this thing. So I have a balance. I'm like, hey, like once a quarter, I take like 2 days and like go, ham on some idea. But I have like I have a list of all the ideas I want to do, but they're cordoned off from my task list. My task list, all
Mm.
the repeatable things that like make my business make money. These are the routines that I don't miss. But I've sectioned off time to say, like, I have all these ideas. I have all of these ideas. How do I dedicate my Sparkles time to the ideas in my Sparkles file?
I love that. Okay, so the system is you have these ideas. Everybody listening has ideas. Capture them. Don't let them just, because I think sometimes that fear of like, well, what happens if I don't take action? And yeah, I'm not going to be able to move forward. What you're saying is capture it, write it down, have a folder, have a project in ChatGPT where you can just talk through all these things. But then when it comes to actually having time for your sparkles list, it's a finite amount of time. I guess you just dedicate a small amount of energy to that, but then it allows you then to appease that side of yourself. So you're trying new things, but you're not going all in on them.
Yeah, so I in the book I talk about three components of our time. It's building the business. I've evolved it since I wrote the book, but building the business, growing the business, running the business, and delivering the business. And this is as a solopreneur, you wear all of those hats, right? Like even if you have like a small team, you're probably doing all of those things at the same time, right? But I kind of say, what's my next? Okay, I have client delivery. I have repeatable marketing and sales activities that I know work for my business. Sure, do I want to like try some stuff there? Maybe, sure. But like, I'm like, these are the things that I know move the needle for me. I have the admin, the running of the business. These are the repeatable things that if I don't do, I get overwhelmed. Like, I must do my bookkeeping. I must clean up and tend to my sales systems and CRM. I have business building projects that I'm executing on a couple at a time, very much like try to keep my whip low, as it were. And then I have my Sparkles list, which is like all the things I want to do over here.
Mm,
Some things that became projects were things that were originally things I was noodling on in the background, my Sparkles, right? But I'm like, all right, I always know Like, what's the priority focus thing for me now? So the book was a Sparkles project for a very long time until it became the building project that I needed to go build. The membership I have, that was like, I was thinking about that idea for a year before I actually had the capacity to like put that in place. So I was doodling on it, dreaming about it. I've written, 3 or 4 sales pages on it, but I knew I didn't have the capacity to execute on it because I was working on other things in my business first. So it was there. I had the dreams, I had the captures, I was noodling on it, thinking about it, but it wasn't the bottleneck. It wasn't the thing that needed to move the needle in my business. And then when it became the most important thing that I needed to be doing, pop from the Sparkle list. But I'd been like, I had a place to put it. And then it's funny when you look back, I look back at my Sparkle list. Sometimes I don't do a great job of keeping it up. But I used to, like, I went back and looked at them like, I did all of these things. They were there. It just took me a year to 2 to execute on some of them. But they showed up when it was the right time.
Yes. Yeah, and that's a great point is sometimes your brain can, once it captured, it can noodle on it and figure out the best way to execute it versus rushing into it.
Exactly. In a lot of these rhythms I talk about, I actually, it's funny. I do them because I was trained in corporate to do them, like, tracking my metrics once a month and goal setting and annually and quarterly. But what I do, I wouldn't always set aside the time to do them, except now I have a membership where I actually host these types of calls for people. So you know what I do? And I'm like, I need to do this for me. Every month I need to like document my metrics and track my stuff. It used to be I did it because my bosses made me do it because there was a meeting to show up for them on the calendar. And now I do it because I host a meeting for people. Like co-working is really important to be like, these are the things that we need to do. We're going to do them together. Um,
Mhm.
like these systems and structures, partially I do them for me because I have to lead them in I lead a membership to do them for people. Because it's like none of the stuff we want to do it by ourselves. This is hard. Like, you know, staying focused, taking a pause. That's all the important but not urgent work that is required and is so hard to do. So that's part of like why I'm like, well, I'm going to do it with my friends.
Yeah. That's a great, yeah. And there's many different ways to build a system, right? Like to your point, sometimes you need accountability and you can build that in many different ways, back to having other entrepreneurs that hiring a coach, there's different ways to execute on what you need so it can support you where you are. But that comes back to your point of developing these rhythms, and that kind of leads me. I'm curious about the communication practices. Like you say, you like to call them rhythms. What do you recommend for small businesses to help stay aligned with your employees, avoid miscommunication? What do you suggest?
Again, it's kind of like, okay, well, what job does this communication need to do? And therefore, how frequently should it happen? So I find that like I call them like arcs, chapters, sprints. So arcs like yearly what's our 3 to 5 year vision? Like the thing that's going to take us like our next big strategic push, right? Like what is that? What are we hoping to achieve this year? Not just from a results perspective, but like what are the building blocks, the EOS, they call them rocks. What are the rocks that we need to do between now and the end of the year to hit the results that we want? What's going to happen in this 6 to 8 week sprint? What are the time blocks, initiatives that we want to do? And then every day and every week, how are we staying aligned on the issues that are keeping us from those initiatives? So like, you might find that the daily stand-up rhythm really works really well. It's like, hey, let's 15 minutes, like knock stuff out. A weekly leadership team alignment. I do like a weekly, as they call it, EOS, a level 10 meeting. But I think but it's really important to say that there's strategic conversations, there's implementation conversations, there's disagreements, there's risk management, and every one of those conversations has like a job, like it. What you don't want to do is in the weekly level 10 meeting have like a giant conversation on strategy, right? Like it's the wrong level of altitude for that kind of dialogue. Like that should be something that's got a different home to it. So I think it's really important to say like what are the different communications we need? And does each type of communication have a home? I didn't even
Mm.
talk about like strategic, like performance management, like what's the, at Nike, where I worked, they called it like on the field, on the sideline, and in the locker room type of feedback. Like on the field, like, in the meeting itself. The other one is like kind of like afterwards, like on a regular basis. And then in the locker room is that, quarterly, annual, what do you want from your job? How are you developing as a human being? How are you developing as an employee? Right. But like, let's not have that conversation at the same time as we're having a conversation about like something super tactical. Like, how do we know all the conversations we need to have and say, okay, when should this rhythm take place? And does this type of communication have a home?
Mm. Yeah, I think it comes back to your point of what's working well, what's not, that Pareto principle, and coming back to, okay, yeah, if we're doing these things and we're setting these things up, well, let's make time to review. Are they still helping us? Sometimes people build systems, and you know me, I'm a systems person. They build them 2, 3, 5 years ago, and they're really not as beneficial as they were when they needed them back then. But they keep doing them because they were beneficial back then, and they don't take the time to say, "Was this still helping us?"
Yeah. That's kind of like the AI conversation. Yeah, we can make these meeting notes more effective. Do we need the meeting note? Do we need this meeting? Or is this meeting a relic of a rhythm and an operations we used to run 6 to 12 months ago, 3 or 4 years ago? I don't advocate like, Shopify at one point in time, like canceled all recurring meetings off the calendar. Some people like to go totally meetingless. I find that that's not like sufficient. But I would say, what are the conversations you're not having? And when are those conversations supposed to happen? And what does everyone need to do to be prepared to have those conversations? And it might mean, you know, fewer strategic initiatives done better, which means trade-offs. And it means kind of, again, like, your strategy shouldn't just be like a list of departmental projects. Like there has to be choice. If we do these things, that means we don't do these things. And that's where it's like we have to say, okay, truly, what is the most important things to be working on to really drive our business forward? Which means we have to know how our business works, what type
Yep.
of business we're trying to run.
Yeah. So where do you struggle in your business?
Um, I have a um, so I live in two time horizons always, which is really hard. So the time horizon one is I like to think of myself as an intellectual bushwhacker, as it were. Like I'm thinking new ideas. I'm coming up with new frameworks. I'm like coming up with like new universes and worlds and like language about how I think about business. So I'm kind of like charging forward on my own edge. At the same time, I make my money from people who are kind of earlier in the journey, right? So it's like, how am I pushing my own edge about my learning and about the frameworks and how I like to think about my work while also going back and like sort of scaffolding the journey for people who haven't spent 5 years on my frameworks. So I have like the biggest challenge I have is trying not to yet slowing down enough to say like I'm literally operating into time horizons. Horizon one, sort of laying the path work for the people that are coming, they read my book. This is all the things I need to do to like shore up my business and make sure that I'm creating a path that's logical for people to follow as like they move through my offerings and my world. But if I only focus on that, then I'm not pushing my own intellectual boundaries about like what am I exploring next. So I have to like all my business building projects have to straddle both horizons. And all I want to do is go faster.
Mm.
And if I go faster, I burn out the asset, which is me. Like I literally, like I can't do I can't move at the pace I want to in both time horizons at the same time. And I know this, and it doesn't make me feel any better. I'm like, no, and that's where I have to hire help. But I'm like, I want the next book. I want to be writing the next book right now. That's not where I need to be spending my time right now. And it is so hard to say, like, that's not what my business needs right now. So, like, that's a Q3, Q4 play. And to not execute on that right away is just it's the responsible business decision that makes my heart like cry a little bit.
Mm. I think a lot of us feel like that. I mean, me too. Like my, I'm working on a book right now, and it's getting, it's improving, but it just takes time. I'm a good writer, but not a great writer, so I really have to craft it. I can't just, you know, write it once, edit it, and then send it off. I have a couple friends like that, and I'm like, I don't know how they do that, but I digress because I think what's important, what you're saying is we all have these things that we have that we want to try, that we want to do, that we could light us up inside, but it's not the prudent approach based off of our team, based off of our current goals. And it comes back to you, like you said, leaving the casino, right? Because if you are just throwing the dice left and right all over the place, you are going to be much more frustrated if you're trying to write another book right now versus doing what's best for the business.
Yeah, like so it's like some people love to dot the I's and cross the T's. I hate dotting the I'm not like I don't despise the details. I'm just not like the hardest part of writing the book was like the very end where I'm like, I had all these quotes and books I cited, and I'm like, I remembered all the things that I wanted to put in there, and I'm like, I have to go track down page numbers for this stuff. I read that book like 10 years ago. Like, I don't know which page this quote is from. Thanks, ChatGPT was actually helpful in that. And it was the making all the things symmetrical. I'm like, but like my joy is like I figured out the framework and I like got it down on paper. It wasn't the coming up with the reflection questions and the intros and the outros. Like all that stuff is really hard for me. And so right now I'm like, because I'm always like, I just want to have more ideas and get them like 85% of the way there. But that's like, that gets me 85% of the money. And if I want 120% of the money, then I need to like finish some of the things, not just like get them down once, but like truly like complete them. And that is not always my, that is intellectually less stimulating than dreaming of a new dream. But that's
Mm.
like, that's more, it's finishing these things to really solid completion means not over completing and not being like, oh, it has to be perfect, but like landing the plane enough so that I have a book now. Well, writing the book was super fun. Marketing the book is actually not terrible. But architecting the journey from when people buy the book to how they can come in my orbit. I'm like, well, can't just like people find it and then know exactly what step? No, I have to come up with the email sequences and tell them like tagging and things like that. That's not fun for me. Like, I'm like, my fun is like dreaming up new frameworks, not going back to all the things and making sure my website is updated and all that stuff. That's not fun. That's not fun for me. Some people love that, and that's terrible for me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
But then to back to your point is hiring somebody, right? Like, or, well, eventually AI will be able to do that type of stuff. It's not quite there yet, but
yeah, that's true.
we're probably not too far away. Um, okay. Is there a leader that you would like to thank, and who is it, and what did they teach you?
So the leader I want to thank, his name is Dave. He worked at Nike. He was one of the first people that gave me full autonomy on a project from start to finish. I was the demand planning director at Nike, so leading a team of people doing forecasting. And the question he had was, why can't I see the performance of our demand plans and kind of like assess it from a higher level across all of our categories? We had women's training and soccer and stuff like that. And I'm like, he's right. We can't. I said, do you care how I get this done? He's like, no, bring me a plan. So like I went and scoped a plan with my innovation team and I like scoped all the dashboards and like brought all the questions and like, worked with like my 10 peers. I had a whole project plan. He let me hire somebody. And he really gave me the autonomy. Most places in corporate, they're like, you execute the plan. And he said, here's a question. I'm going to give you a couple $100,000 and some latitude to go figure it out. And he let me figure it out. So it's like being my first taste of entrepreneurship. And I didn't have to like get too much sign off. Everyone's like, we trust you, run. It was awesome. It was my first
Mm.
taste of being an entrepreneur. Now, to be fair, I did that in my Sparkles time, right? Like I had a job to do. So this was my nights and weekends project temporarily. I hired somebody to help me with some of the things. It was awesome because he's like, run. I trust you. Keep me posted on the journey. Ask for feedback and get sign off on things. But was the first time I got to in my Sparkles time, got to like lead something really cool.
What's his last name? Maybe I can link to him in the show notes.
He's on LinkedIn. His name is Dave Martinez.
Dave Martinez. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll see if I can find him because it's nice connecting other people. I think, especially if the person I'm interviewing, it's there's some trust there, and they're like, oh, I want to learn from this guy too. So I find that fun. Okay. So one of the things I like to do is what I call is the 5 minute system segment. So we'll end it here, and then we'll go a little deeper dive. Where can people go to find out more about you?
They can go to my website, deeperfoundations.com. If they're interested in the book, they can get that on Amazon or deeperfoundations.com/casino.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.